You've done it. You found us again live here with Coffee with Humans with my soon-to-be new friend, Brent Hafele. Brent, welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited. I do have to get this out of the way. Number one, it is winter time. And I'm just going to blame it on you that you chose the winter background. I was going to go with the spring background that looked an awful lot like this, which I call the background of hope. But you chose winter. What is it? Why did you do that?
Well, we haven't had snow. I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and we haven't had snow in almost all of December. And so we just got a dumping of snow just yesterday, and we're going to have a bunch more snow in the next few days. And so it just felt appropriate for what we're dealing with right now.
All right. I concede. I agree with you. It was a disappointing winter here in the Midwest so far that we have not had much snow. We had Christmas without snow, which is always a weird time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Where are you located?
I'm outside Chicago.
Okay.
Conferred, Illinois.
Okay, so you're also a Midwesterner, and go Pack, go! By the way, they just beat the Bears to get into the playoffs. But yeah, we had no snow, which was really bizarre. And I've got some friends that live in Africa, in Kenya and Uganda, that I've been connecting with about Christmas there versus here. And I was telling them it's weird that we're not having a white Christmas. And they're like, we never have a white Christmas. We have never had a white Christmas. And so, because they live right on the equator, it doesn't really snow in most parts of those countries. And so it's been kind of an interesting cultural experience to see that. But yeah. So we chose snow.
I think it's fascinating to be able to connect with people across the world and then share what is different about our common experiences, things like holidays and dates and whatnot. I think
food. Yeah, very simple things. And it's easy to make assumptions about others and yet find out that there's actually not that much of a difference between us. We're all the same in many ways.
That is very true. Well, I'm excited that you're here on Coffee with Humans. For viewers and listeners who are new to us, Coffee with Humans is a unfiltered conversation with a stranger. Brent, you signed up, I don't know, weeks ago, clicked a button to have coffee with me, this virtual coffee, and we don't know each other. And I've done no research on you, and maybe you've done some research on me, I don't know. But I'm excited. I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited that anybody's joining us today.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if there's a question in there.
There's not. But if you want the question,
no, this is your show. I'm just here to find out what we're talking about today. So this is great. You're like, that's why I'm here.
You named it. You said go with the flow. So
exactly.
Why would you click the button to have coffee with me, a stranger?
You know, I have a really good friend, Justin Vaco, who you interviewed just a few weeks or months ago. I don't remember the exact timeline, but he was telling me about this experience, and he's like, that was really fun. And it was interesting. I didn't know where Jason was going to go, but it was exciting. It was interesting. And I thought, I'm game for that. I like that. And the whole concept of improv is always interesting as well. So
are you an improv guy? Do you like that?
I have wanted to toy with improv comedy, but by profession, I'm an executive coach. And so coaching is really an art of improv because you don't really know where the client is going or what they want to talk about. And good coaches reserve their conceptions of what should happen in a coaching session and instead just react to the client and work with the client's needs in that. So I also do a lot of like seminars and teaching and training, and my style is very much reacting to people in those situations as well, and sometimes going off target or going off, responding to the audience in some way. So I like the concept of improv. So maybe someday.
I do too. And I wonder how many other people think, boy, man, if I could just stand up on that stage and learn how to do improv or be a comedian. And we live these professional lives like you talk about. You're doing coaching, which has some connections to improv, being able to read off of somebody else's actions, behaviors, whatever is on their mind.
Yep, exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something, there's a freedom in improv, which I guess maybe I didn't even know we were going to go there. This is where we went to the go with the flow as a theme for the show. Is there's a freedom to improv where I don't have to be anything, I don't have to do anything, I just respond, and hopefully thoughtfully, but nonetheless be in a responsive mode to wherever we go. So, and that's a core part of what you're doing, I'm guessing, in a lot of this. You're like, I don't know who you are. I don't know you from Adam, and so let's talk. And you're just responding.
Yeah, it keeps me on my toes. I started Coffee with Humans 200 something episodes ago, back in the height of COVID, probably April-ish timeframe, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I started it was I really felt like people were becoming so disconnected to the point of almost being despondent, breaking down in some ways. And I thought, well, I got the technology, I know how to connect with people. And so it was sort of a resistance mechanism to the tendency to isolate and become despondent. And now, I've had conversations with people all across the world. It's been very fascinating. And in fact, the intro video, which says, hey, we could have this conversation in a hot spring, I talked to a gentleman in Iceland who informed me that was not a hot spring. It's actually runoff from the power plant. and I was simultaneously heartbroken and also intrigued.
Yeah.
But the art of conversation, I think, is something that we're losing quickly.
Yes.
Folks. And that's what Coffee with Humans is about. Let's restore the art of being human. That's why I'm just exposed this idea. Hey, we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of our professional, personal relationships, if we can drop the facade a little bit and just connect with another individual, what amazing things could we learn? And what fascinating connections could we make?
So, Jason, what are some of the things that you've learned about people then?
Much like your previous comment, we are all the same. It's something that maybe we might assume that, or maybe some people think, oh, people are vastly different across the world. And I've had the opportunity to travel a bit, and so I've met folks on the other side of the planet, but more so through this virtual atmosphere. Hopes, they've got hopes. Dreams, they've got dreams. Struggles, they've got struggles. And the challenges emotionally or mentally, sometimes physically, that we think are somehow very unique to us are not really all that unique. Everybody is dealing with something, and it's really eye-opening. I think it's also an opportunity to then connect people to resources that they wouldn't otherwise have, and also a bit of hope.
Yeah, that
you're actually not alone. And any time that idea that I'm alone starts cropping up, boy, just see the world a little bit. You'll find out you're not that alone. You might be choosing to be alone more so than actually in reality being alone.
Yeah. I think that is really true. And when you look at those commonalities, I end up as a coach talking to a lot of people about their fears or about struggles that they have. And I work with a lot of CEOs. I work with a lot of executives, senior leaders, people that are supposed to be impenetrable and supposed to be, they're the image of the company or the image of the organization. And yet they're making it up as they go too a lot of the time.
Right.
And so I get to have those private conversations. Not mine is not live streamed on YouTube or other platforms, but have those private conversations. And in those conversations, you hear the same thing, that, oh, okay, so I'm struggling with this, or I worry about this, or I'm not having fun here, or this is painful, or I'm struggling in my family, and I don't know how to tell other people or to engage. One of the interesting things recently I've had is having some conversations about friendship and how to reestablish good friendships with people and engage in good friendships with people. And we're losing, I feel like, with the art, the age of social media, and with artificial intelligence, and some of the other just even simple things like garage door openers, that we drive into the garage, we shut the door behind us, we sit in the backyard on the deck instead of the front yard on the porch. We're losing a lot of that opportunity to connect as humans. And honestly, I think we're created to be in relationship with humans. And so that's that this face-to-face thing is just really important. Unfortunately, it seems, especially in the American context, that it's undervalued. And I loved when I got the opportunity in September and October to go to Uganda and Kenya. And it was just so awesome to be able to sit with people and just talk with them and not be distracted by the phone, which, oh, by the way, I should put it on airplane time, or airplane mode, so no one bothers me right now. But yeah, it really is real. This is real life time. But that connection with people and being able to say, I'm going to reserve some space. I'm going to reserve some time with you, and you're worth that time. You're worth that opportunity to connect with. So,
yeah, the Western culture, particularly in America, is very individualistic,
mm-hmm.
at least in my experience. And maybe in our press to optimize our productivity, we optimize true relationships right out of it. To your point, certain cultures would sit on the front porch. It's like, that's the thing. You sit on the front porch and interact with everybody that's going by. That was not how I grew up. We'd play in the backyard, not the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, I've had to push to bring back it. I started having coffee on my front deck instead of the back deck, simply to see people, see the cars going by, interact with the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, even in my own mind at the time, it's just like, wow, there's some like activation energy. I got to get over this hurdle. Why is this such a big deal to sit on the front deck and be exposed?
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is indicative of our culture, which I think all too often then that leads to polarization out of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Because we simply don't understand how connected we all are. And the world is not a scary place, because people are the vast majority of people are genuinely kind.
Yes.
And giving, and want the best for themselves and each other and you. And too often, because we're not exposed to these things, we're likely to believe the narrative that, or the extremes, the fantastical, and those extremes and fantastical are I think sometimes polarizing. Those narratives are a bit polarizing.
There's
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Please. It's the awkwardness of social of this online video stuff. Like, are you done? Are you going? What?
I know, right?
What are you doing? Oh, you stopped. Sorry. You're going. Okay, never mind.
No, you go.
No, you go. No. So, we have. There was a study, and I'm not going to remember the source right now, but it was something like 80 or 90% of marriages, that when they cross the line of calling their spouse a name,
okay,
you are and some bad name. Okay. I'm not going to repeat them, but you are this. You're just, she's just a, he's just a. When you cross that line, you are 80 to 90% more likely to get a divorce.
Hmm.
There's something about name calling, and about tying identities onto people. And I think we do that way too much in our society. I see that just really too frequently, that name calling, assuming other people's assumptions, and I'm a person of faith. I look at, from a Christian perspective. I look at the words that were spoken about humankind, that we are beloved, and that we are masterfully made, and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that we are chosen and anointed and beloved, and a friend. Like some of these names, and those names are honorable, those names are good. And when we call someone something that they're not, even if they're behaving poorly, I think it puts a chasm between people, and it changes our view of them. And so one of the practices, one of the habits that I have worked very, very hard in my own life, is to stop calling people names, even in my head. Like, I will catch it and I'm like, nope, that's not who they are. They may be acting like a jerk, but they are not a jerk. They may be acting like an idiot, but they are not an idiot. And just changing that, and separating the human, the person, from the behavior. Because too often, I mean, we look and we say, oh, the Democrats are this, the Republicans are this, the Russians are that, the Chinese are that, the Africans are that, black people are this, white people are that, Jewish people are that, Palestinians are that. And we have all these names, and it dehumanizes who they actually are. And the truth is, most Russians are wonderful. Most Chinese are wonderful. Most Africans are amazing. Most Americans are wonderful. And there's some really bad ones within the bunch. But
Yeah,
there are a lot fewer bad ones than there are good ones. It's just the bad ones get heard, I think.
right. Yeah, I think that might be true. I like the idea of this, calling out the idea of name calling, naming something. I think many times we take a shorthand approach to communication, and I've tried to stop myself on the shorthand when I say, oh, broad brush about a particular topic or an individual or something like that, and instead get into the nuance and force my brain to get into the nuance of it. Because when you get into the nuance of it, you find that it's not quite so simple. Even like you talk about, when we see things from a distance, we tend to see it as a simpler. The situation is simpler than it is. So, for instance, I've got a little saying, and it's a dumb saying, but hey, it's improv, right? And it goes something like this: it's hard to build a space station. Now, nobody ever thinks about building a space station, yet we have a space station. You could look at it with your naked eye. You can see it going across the sky. You could get a
Is that the noise that it makes?
Yes. It's little known fact, when you're 5 feet from it, goes, actually,
I'm learning new things all the time
if you
here.
put your hand on it, you can feel the hum.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's space, dude. There's no sound.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, there is sound, but if a tree falls and there's no air around to transmit the sound, does it make sound? Okay, we're not going to get into it, but it's hard to build a space station. And here's why I say that. Somewhere I read this, that when the space station is in front, is exposed to the sun, it is something like 250 degrees on the exterior. And I'll have to look up the number. I'm forgetting exactly what the number is, but it's something like 250 degrees on the exterior, right? There's nothing, there's no air blocking, there's no atmosphere around it. It's super hot. On the other side, in the shadow, it's negative 250. And that happens, I can't remember how many times a day. It happens many times a day, where it goes from 250 to negative 250 to 250 to negative 250 to 250 to negative 250. If you took things in your house,
Yeah.
and you're just like, hey, I'm just going to experiment and do a 500-degree temperature difference multiple times per day, how difficult would it be to build a material that could withstand that over time?
Yep.
It's really damn difficult. And then you stick people in it in a vacuum environment and fly them to and from that via rockets. Nobody ever gives any thought to that. And yet we will cast some judgment. Well, we don't need a space station. Well, I don't know why they left them up there so long. I don't know why they don't. It's like, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Right? And it gets into the nuance. Sometimes because these topics, these situations are so far from us, we've never dealt with them ourselves, we are likely to oversimplify. And then what you talked about is we assume people's intentions, which are only based on our own narrative, our own intentions. Here's what I would do in that circumstance. Like, well, that's great. You're not that person. You actually don't know what's going on, particularly when you don't really know that individual.
Sure.
When you're disconnected, maybe by hundreds, thousands of miles. So I think that getting back to this idea of knowing one another, being human with one another, that shorthand is a massive oversimplification. And if we just see it as a massive oversimplification and then challenge ourselves to get closer, or to be like, I can't get closer, so I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to say, here's what I observed, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just my observation.
Yeah.
That, I think, has an opportunity to open our minds and, let's say, our hearts to experience each other, I think, in new ways, where the shorthand does not become an issue of polarization. It becomes hey, I don't really know. And it might become an issue of curiosity. Maybe I'll investigate that a little bit further. Maybe I'll go deeper.
Those questions are really valuable. There's a concept in psychology called fundamental attribution error.
Yep.
And the way that works is that you ascribe good intentions to yourself and bad intentions to others. And so, well, I did this because of that, but they made the wrong choice, or they did the wrong thing, in that situation. And so in exact same situations, you can say I had good intentions and they had bad. And as a coach, this has been something that has really freed me over time, as I have learned about the coaching methodology and coaching approach. One, some of the core tenets is assuming positive intent. Is just right out of the chute, assuming positive intent. I don't know why you're doing this, Jason, this coffee with human things, but I'm assuming that it is for good reasons. And I'm not going to assume negative intent. I'm going to assume a positive intent. Another part of that is just non-judgment. And that's another element that has freed me in a lot of my work. And that's that I'm not going to call other people names in my coaching work. I'm not going to judge my clients. I'm working on even with that within my own family. And I'm the father here. So judgment is easy. That's kind of the dad's job, and the parent's job is to make judgments upon their kids, and trying to be very careful in how I do that, and trying to withhold as much of that as I possibly can, in my family, with my friends, in my community, and being careful with that. And frankly, calling out others when they're doing it, because it's just more often than not damaging in the lives of others.
Good point. All right. Well, let's talk about coaching.
Yeah.
You said you're a coach, business coach, executive coach. You said you talk with executives.
Yes.
All right. This idea of executive coaching, you said that, you get to see the kind of behind the scenes look. It's like the play goes on. We all watch the play, and then, the whole cast scurries in the back, and like quick wardrobe changes, and oops, we got to fix this error before we go out and, present it to the world. How did you get into coaching, and why do you care?
Oh, that's a complicated question. That we might be here for a couple hours.
I know. It's okay.
That I've always been fascinated by the leadership space. Leadership is just so interesting to me because leadership basically is multiplication. I can do something myself, or I can lead others to do those things, or I can lead others who are leading others to do those things, or I can lead others who are leading others who are leading others to lead others to lead those things. And what that does is it creates a multiplication effect of impact. And so when I was 29, I'm 44 now, but when I was 29 years old, my eldest son was born. And my wife looked at him and said, I can't go back to work. And we were fortunate enough, blessed enough to be able to manage on a single household income. It was a sacrifice, but we could do it. But I really looked at that and I said, uh-oh, because she was making 60% of our income and 100% of our benefits.
Mm.
And at that time, I decided, I'm gonna start a consulting firm. And I hope that I can make like maybe 10 grand on the side. That'll take the edge off, because who's going to hire a 29-year-old consultant?
Okay.
What does a 29-year consultant even know? They don't know anything. And sorry, if you're 29, I apologize, but you don't know anything. I'm 44 and I barely know anything right now. The further I go, the more that I realize I know less today than I knew yesterday, as I'm learning. And so as a 29-year-old consultant, I couldn't come into the environments that I worked in being the all-knowing, omniscient master to walk into these environments to deal with the challenges that were before me. So I ended up using lots of questions, lots of observation, testing theories. Hey, this is kind of what I think is going on. What do you think is going on? Do you see that too? And asking different questions to bring that through. I didn't know that I was using a coach approach to consulting at that time. I did it out of necessity. And when I found out, oh, this kind of works, maybe I'll keep doing this. And so that's where kind of that coaching approach came. The heart for leaders really came as I started to, as I'm working with clients, I would end up in the CEO's office. And at some point they would say, hey, Brent, can we talk? Can we go for a walk? Can we go have a cup of coffee? Can we enjoy a cigar? Can we do something to have a conversation? And so we'd get into that intimate environment. We'd have a conversation, and suddenly they'd say, all right, I don't know how to say this, but I'm struggling in my marriage.
Hmm.
Or I'm really burned out. I don't want to be here. I hate my job. Or they would share something like, I'm having a lot of fun, but it's affecting my family negatively. Or I've got a team that I just don't have confidence in. And so these doubts, these struggles, these concerns, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I can push it through the next 2 years for what this organization needs. And so we would start a dialogue. We'd have a conversation, and it was strange because I'm 20 years younger than them. And we're having these conversations, and for whatever reason, people felt safe to talk. And over a 15-year period, I've had conversations with over 175 executives like that. And in just over time, it's like, wait a second, I'm doing this consulting in the nonprofit sector on fundraising and these other things, but what I really enjoy is working with the CEO. That's the fun part, and that's where I feel like I'm most effective. And over time, through a whole bunch of twists and turns and detours and bumps and other things, I ended up in coaching, and I just love it. I just love it. It's a way to affirm people. It's a way to challenge them. It's a way to encourage them. It's a way to create a space where they can feel safe to be themselves, and hopefully help them learn how to be more of themselves outside of that space.
That's I think that's really good testament to the power of coaching and the need for people to be seen and heard. I was cutting up onions the other day for my omelet, and my dog Jeff was.
Your dog's name is Jeff. I love that.
Technically, it's Jeffrey.
Okay.
It sounds pretentious.
Yeah.
So it's Jeff because he's fun.
Yeah.
He's also from an Indian reservation, so I call him Jeffrey Flying Eagle. But then, then he feels like he's in trouble, so it's just Jeff.
Okay.
So anyhow, he's cutting up onions. My dog Jeff's sitting next to me, and I got to talking to him. I said, "Hey, how'd you sleep last night?" And then I said some other stuff, and I said, "Oh, are you going to chase some squirrels today?" Again, I'm just cutting up onions. It's just he and me in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then I stopped for a second. I thought, this is the nature, like the nature of humans, that we just want to be heard.
Yeah.
That dog has no idea what I'm saying. None at all. And he is an attentive listener.
Yep.
Because he cares. He is all in on me, and I'm not that great. And sometimes I'm super frustrated with him, and I think it bewilders him. How are you so frustrated with me? But he's always all in with me. And I noticed myself feeling better as I'm having this conversation with the dog. And I really did cross my mind. This is the human condition, part of the human condition, that we just want to be heard, and we will feel better. We will make sense of our stuff many times simply because there is space and someone in that space to listen to us. We don't need all that much communication back many times.
Yeah.
All right.
You just said you didn't need more communication back. So I was just going with that,
Just playing into it.
Making space for you to do what you got to do.
Such a coach.
Yeah. This might be funny, but I'm doing, when I was in some of my coaching training, and good coaches are always in training, but I was in a coaching training session.
On a t-shirt?
What?
Are you going to put that on a t-shirt?
There you go. There you go. Exactly.
Training.
But I was in a coaching mentoring session, and we're all watching a student coach another student. And then we had a master coach there, and then the rest of us there. And the student that was being the coach at that time did not say anything for 18 minutes straight. And the coaching session gets done. It was like a 35-minute coaching session or something like that. 18 minutes, did not say anything, just nodded. And we get done, and I could see my fellow students all looking and like, what's the big guy gonna say? and he's a master certified coach. He's at the top of the industry. Really, really amazing coach, Chad Hall. And he says, folks, you just witnessed a masterful coaching session. And I'm like, whoa, like it was just, we can sometimes get so up in the air about having to do something. And what he talked about is, he says, if your client is talking and they're going someplace good, don't interrupt them just to feel good about yourself. Let them go. And if they're not going somewhere, then interrupt them at some point and redirect them or help them kind of get back on track. But you're right that the ability to communicate, to connect, that connection is pivotal. And I work with some of the most intelligent people, the most talented people in our societies, and ironically, they often don't feel like they can be fully expressive or share, because as soon as something comes out of their mouth, their teams are like, okay, I'll get right to that. And they're like, no, I was just brainstorming. Or, the brain, oh, that's a brilliant idea. And well, I don't know if it's a good idea. Let's test it. Oh, no, you said it. It had to have been good. And they need time to process it and let it out and be challenged a bit in a space where they aren't going to be judged, where they're not going to be told what to do. Because I give very little advice in my coaching sessions. I tend to either listen and ask questions, share a couple insights. I might share a model, and every once in a great while, I'll bring out some good old fashioned horse sense. But more often than not, I'm not giving advice. I'm just giving them space to ask questions, or to engage with questions, to be seen, to be affirmed, to be encouraged, and frankly, sometimes to be challenged.
I was working with a small privately held business a number of years ago. The father had started this business. It had been going on for a decade. He had some special technology knowledge that he was working on, but he couldn't run the business. And his son was running the business instead, sort of clandestinely, because he had a different full-time job, and he'd come in super early in the morning and run this business, and then he'd leave and go to his other full-time job and whatnot. And the thing was unsustainable. The whole business was coming apart, it seems. And quite honestly, Dad was undermining things. So when the son finally brought in me and a handful of other consultants, we were unpacking this whole thing, just trying to get some things straight. And and Dad would come in the next day, and he would undo things we were doing. Super frustrating. So we're talking to the son about this, and we finally have this kind of come to Jesus meeting. We're all sitting down there, and the son snapped hardcore on the dad, started screaming and yelling and saying, I'm gonna, if you don't fix this, yada yada, I'm gonna get up. My family's, me, my wife, my kids, we're gonna leave town. We're done with you. It
Ouch.
just right. And the couple of people who didn't, and now I kind of know my way through this, right? And some other folks who were in the room were like terrified. They didn't know what was going on, but they're deferring to me. And so I just let this go, right? Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go, as the two of them just like erupted. And then it calmed down. And so then I, quietly spoke into the moment. And it was terrible for them, and I'm not laughing because it was funny. I'm laughing because it's just this is the human need. This is the human experience. Like, settle in for the ride. It gets messy sometimes. And I explained to people that we all carry around a bucket of the things we have not said. And sometimes executives, or in the case of a small privately held business, a father, son, they're throwing things in their bucket all day because they don't know how to offer it safely to the other individual. And that bucket, we all have a varying degrees of sizes of buckets we can carry.
Bucket of slop.
Right? Exactly. Some of us, many times, executives are better at carrying bigger buckets.
Yes.
Right? Yep. And then eventually somebody throws the final thing that we cannot hold in the bucket, and we throw the rest of the bucket at them. Sometimes we catch ourselves in the middle and go, oops, I'm throwing my bucket.
Spilled on you.
Right? And we leave stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then we go, okay, well, oops, you didn't see anything. Right? And I think why this reminds me, what we're talking about reminds me of that situation, is because these buckets weigh us down. and they don't go away. We as soon as we empty it, now we're left with an empty bucket, which
Yep.
immediately, unless we sort of, treat the condition, not the symptom, we just go about filling that bucket up again. Only now we're like, oh,
Yes.
great, this is resolved. No, the bucket's lighter. And you're so used to carrying the big bucket, you have no idea that this is not resolved. You just have very little in the bucket. The bucket is there. It is as big as it was before. You still have no pathway to empty it on a routine basis in a more healthy way. And offering a person the space, like you're talking about, to be able to get that bucket emptied without all of the built up emotion of the moment that overflowed
Yep.
is so needed for all of us in
Mm-hmm.
any relationship. And like it or not, we work. No, none of us are an island. We're like, I think you maybe said it earlier. We're created to know one another. We're created to be a community. We're created to have these relationships, and the health of our relationships, our businesses, are rise and fall on our ability to maintain healthy relationships.
Exactly. It's, I tell my clients that if you need to bitch, and I'm sorry, that's just the word. I don't know if we can say that on this, but if you need to,
Already did.
give me a call and just lay it on me.
Right.
Like it'll come, and I'm a certified Clifton strengths coach, and that there's 34 unique talents in the Clifton strengths, and empathy is one of them. Empathy is the ability to, it's different than the standard definition that most people would think is of empathy. People with high empathy actually feel what other people are feeling, and they have almost like this superpower radar, emotional radar, to pick up the emotions of other people without even having conversations. Empathy, as far as my talents are concerned, are like in the lowest tier. and that can be a problem if you don't know how to manage that. But for me, my clients can go, I am so mad, and I'll be like, yep, okay, I'm sorry, and I will walk through them, and I'll get done with the call, and I'll just walk away, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And there are some who have high empathy, and they, that talent is really a valuable one, but they will carry that with them out of that conversation. And so having that space to just unload, let it out in a healthy, productive way is really valuable. And there's a difference between, question is what's in your bucket. If there's stuff that is like way back, it's really old slop that you're carrying around, that might be where you need a therapist to come in and help, or, someone who's a mental health specialist, or that who can help you take from the past and bring you to the present. But coaches are really good at taking things from the present and helping you get to the future. And so that's that element of, you're right, I love that metaphor of the bucket. It's kind of sloppy, it's kind of messy, but it's a good metaphor for, how's your bucket right now? What's it filled with? And do you need to dump it, or do you need to fill it up with good stuff? I think that's a great metaphor.
I've been known to ask people, what else is in your bucket? when they start speaking out their mind, usually, you try it with your wife sometime. Yeah. When she starts talking about something, you just offer the space.
Yep.
Is there anything else in the bucket?
Yeah.
And more often than not, there is. But this idea of empathy brought to my mind the idea of emotional reflectors and emotional absorbers. And emptying buckets is really helpful with somebody who's not emotionally invested, because they will not and somebody who does not emotionally reflect, because the emotional reflection makes it bigger. It's I send you this and you amplify it and send it right back to me, and then I get it bigger, and it's all of a sudden becomes a thing that it wasn't, because we got all these other, it's attached to too many other emotions, which are actually they're not relevant to this matter. They were just in the space. And that emotional reflectivity, yes, that's the word, is really valuable in some situations and really detrimental in others, just the same way as being an emotional absorber is really valuable in certain situations. Like, I can listen to your stuff, and it now, you even feel like it's not such a big deal. You're starting to process it through because all the emotion is being let out, which leaves room for
Yes.
some perhaps more frontal cortex processing.
Yeah, very true. It's something where we need those spaces, and whether we're doing it with a friend or a family member or a pastor or a counselor or a coach, we need those spaces, and it's important that when it's done in a way that is healthy for both parties. It's important that it is done in a safe space that allows you to say whatever it is that you need to say on your heart or on your mind and get it out, so that then you can start packaging it and saying, oh, now what am I going to do with this, and start looking at it more productively. Getting back to that, almost full circle in our conversation of like name calling and the behaviors that you see. Well, why do I feel this way? What is that behind there? And now that I know I'm angry, what am I going to do with that behavior? Just because they are acting like a jerk doesn't mean I have to respond in kind. I can feel the feeling, or as my wife says, feel the feels. And then after you feel the feels, decide what you're going to do about it instead of react to what you're going to do. So it's that improv. It's that going with the flow of instead of reacting, you're responding to what's going on and adding to the conversation, or I shouldn't say adding to, but advancing the conversation in a productive way.
Yeah, and what a valuable thing to do. Working with executives like we're talking about, and Coffee with Humans is not primarily a business related show, but sometimes, depending on where we go, it's super valuable. And I think this particular conversation where we're talking about coaching, if you want to change the world, go change the business owners and the executives, because they are in a position of leverage where their behavior impacts many people in a way
Many people.
that other folks just don't have that, just don't have the positions of leverage.
Yep.
And it doesn't make anybody, if people are getting hung up on some people are better than others, it has nothing to do with that. But if you're in charge of 10 people, your behavior matters a whole lot more than if you're in charge of yourself. And I think it's up to all of us. I think it's up to all of us to take a close look. Maybe like we're talking about, how big is your bucket and what's in it? And are you are you carrying around too much? It's okay. Everybody's got a bucket.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Maybe they should talk to you and figure out how to empty it.
There you go. There you go.
Well, we're coming up on the end of our time with Coffee with Humans, and you're right. I don't know if you said it before the broadcast or before, but you said, yeah, wow, we could talk about this for hours, and we totally could. I'm all in on this, and maybe we should do that. Maybe we should have some further conversation with the folks here on LinkedIn, or YouTube or Twitch or wherever you're seeing this. But this is my new friend and guest, Brent. Brent, it's so good to have you on Coffee with Humans.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, for giggles, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. So the easiest way is to go to vibrancyunlocked.com. And you go to that website, and you can get access to email, phone, that kind of thing. So vibrancyunlocked.com, real simple there. You can also check me out on LinkedIn. So
awesome. Well, this has been Coffee with Humans, which is a raw, real, unscripted conversation between two strangers who become friends. I think we did that, Brent.
I hope so. This was good. I liked it.
Well, I tell you what, like we talked about before, humans need to be in relationship with one another, and the art of conversation is something that might be getting lost a bit. And why can't we just be human together, regardless what happened yesterday? This is the first day that I've ever been this old. It's the first day I've ever lived this day, and you too. So I'm going to be great in some areas and terrible in others, and maybe you will too, and it's okay. Go talk to Brent if you need to work it through.
There you go.
Thanks to everybody, and thanks to you, Brent, for being on Coffee with Humans.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls. This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.